As we know, left brain is our logical mind, rational mind. That is where we make all of our rational decisions, especially our work, business-related decisions. And that's what we think, that we are rational being. We all think that we are rational. Other people are emotional, but we are rational. We make rational decisions. We think logically. That's how we think. Well, the reality is, experts tell us that most of our decisions are driven by the right mind, right side of the brain, which is basically an emotional brain, not logical brain. So the question is, why people would buy a $20,000 Rolex watch? Would you have a logic or rational to buy a watch to watch time for $20,000? And marketers understand that very well. Expert marketers understand very well that most of our decisions are made by right brain, not the left brain. So they work very hard on it, and they create an image and perception and branding where we are willing to spend $20,000 to watch a Rolex watch, to watch time. Maybe we are smart enough not to say that, but for a lifestyle, of course, I bought 20,000 Rolex watches for a lifestyle because I can afford it. That's exactly they want you to think. So what happens usually, we make most decisions from the right brain, from our emotional side, and then we create a rationale for it. We think that we are rational, we'll think logically, and that is how we make decisions. Sometimes we are emotional, but most of the time we are making rational decisions, right? That's what we think. Reality is, most of the time we are making emotional decisions and then creating a rationale for it. Let me ask you this. How many of you ever hired a person which you don't like? One. What about others? Okay, a few more. But in majority of the cases, we recruit or hire people we like, and then we create a justification. This is what from experts, this is what expert says, that we first make the decision emotionally, and then we create a justification for it. This person I like because he has the right experience and background and knowledge and qualification, so I should hire them. What you see on this big picture here? You see a big elephant, right? And along with the elephant, you see a tiny rider, tiny rider. I will ask you to, for a few moments, just visualize yourself as a tiny rider with your rational mind, because as I mentioned earlier, all the time you are thinking that I'm rational, so your logical mind is always with you. And you are this tiny rider with your logical mind. And think of the elephant as your right brain or emotional side. So how does it happen? If you are a smoker, you would say, logically, I should not smoke, right? That's your logical thinking, left brain. But it is the right brain which will say, I could start quitting from next month, or I will make a plan, or I would do it after my vacation. You want to go to gym. That's your rational thinking, logical thinking. But your emotional brain would say, I will start from tomorrow. Today I'm tired. Or I'm already doing dieting probably, so I could delay the going to gym a little later, right? That is how you work. So elephant is not easy to control. Our willing power is always very weak. Your willing power is with you in your logical mind. That is where willing power is. Big elephant is our emotional mind, which does not go by logic, it goes by moods. But there are other habits elephant very obediently follow. When you get up in the morning and you go to bathroom and brush your teeth, elephant doesn't question that. Elephant only questions the discretionary things, whether it should go gym or not. Every day you get up at a certain point of time and you go to work. Every day, work days, right? Elephant doesn't question that. Elephant only questions if you decided to go on a weekend, the same routine, right? You have a big fight with elephant on the weekend to do the same routine you do 5 days a week. Because elephant knows it's discretionary. So the one way is really to train our elephant is to establish habits. Train the elephant so much, so many times, so regularly you go to bathroom to brush your teeth, the elephant says, it's a given routine. There is no question of even asking why. But when it comes to gym, it says why. So elephant is not bad all the time. If you are able to train your elephant, elephant can do wonders for you. What is passion or what is being passionate? It's basically really emotional. Now, we also think being emotional is not a good thing. Well, overly emotional probably is not a good thing, but emotions are a natural part of human being. And if we could train our elephant, in other words, if we could train our right brain or right mind, we could achieve wonderful results. That's how people achieve it. So experts tell us that it's even a little more complex than the right brain and left brain. Experts tell us that basically there are three brains. And the three brains are, the cortex brain is our rational or thinking brain, which is the logical mind or logical brain. This is what we think we are, mainly. Then they say we have second part, which is the limbic brain, or emotional or feeling brain. This is the right side of the brain. But there is also a third part of the brain, according to experts, which is reptilian brain. What is this reptilian brain? Reptilian brain is instinctual. It's natural desires we have. And normally, we find this in many animals, this instinctual, which is also called the dinosaur brain. Now, human beings are the only species which have these three brains. Usually, or commonly, animals do not have that logical brain at all. So, for example, if you want to feed a shark, if you're not careful, shark probably will also eat your hand, feeding hand, because she has no logical or rational brain. So the feeding hand, she cannot understand that it's basically giving her food. These three brains is a gift of God, as well as really a challenge, because when we make most of the decisions, we have to struggle how to balance between these three brains. And the natural brain or the reptilian brain also interferes many times with our decision making. Like when you're very hungry, it's instinctual to find food. Sex desire is part of it. And we have to control those temptations, the natural temptations, with our logical and emotional mind. IQ is basically related to the rational mind or the logical mind. And as we start the life journey and we are growing up from the elementary to secondary school, we are usually using our logical or rational brain. But as we age, as we grow in our life, our emotional side started to become stronger and stronger. And that is why by the time you hit the midlife, you are facing more midlife crisis because of the emotional side and the rational side. IQ is very much important, very relevant in the first half of the life when you're dealing with your academics, college, university, school. But in the second part of the life, our EQ becomes very, very important. What do you see common in these pictures here? These are all familiar faces, right? Very successful people, billionaires probably, but there is one characteristic which is astonishing among them. They are all college dropouts. Why college dropouts are so successful in their life, much more successful than graduates. They are not dumb people, by the way. They are very smart people. But at some point in their life, especially the early part, when they were in college, school, and universities, their right brain was very, very strong. Emotional mind was over-dominating. And they had a desire, they had a passion at that time to do something, not logically, but emotionally. It was so strong an emotion, they even couldn't wait for 4 or 5 years in the college. They said, I need to start it now. And of course, over a period of time, they become very smart. So it's not that their IQ was weak, but their EQ level at that time was strongly dominating their mind. That's the power of the elephant I mentioned earlier. That if somehow you are able to create a passion for something, somehow you are able to create a desire for your elephant, that elephant can do wonders for you. So in day-to-day life, what we do and what we observe is the performance and behavior only on the surface. It's the surface of the iceberg. And unfortunately, in most of the efforts, formal or informal, we try to fix that behavior on the surface. in all organizational theories, most of the time we are trying to fix that behaviors. We ourselves think that we can change that behavior. It's not that easy because all of those behavior and performance are driven from the bottom, where our values lies, where our thinking, attitudes, behavior, emotional needs lies there. So if you really want to change your behavior, the best way, the most effective way is to go to the roots, go to the bottom of those values. Change your values. It will change your behavior. Most of our behaviors are a result of our values we have. One of my mentors said, do more than what you are paid for, to invest in your future. That's a different mindset, right? Unions probably wouldn't like that, but if you believe that whatever opportunities and the work you do, that's continuously develop you for future opportunities, that's an investment, that's an opportunity. But if you all the time looking for comparing the work with the compensation, your behavior would not going to change and improve for your benefit. So it's all about the values, and I call it mindsets. If you are able to develop right mindset, you could do wonder, and you would remain comfortable and calm and happy whatever you do. Emotional intelligence is nothing but very simply understanding our own emotions. And when we deal with others, understanding their emotions and use them in a positive manner, that's it. And logically, the experts have given that it starts with a self-awareness. Do I really understand my behavior, my instincts, my emotions? And from the self-awareness, it goes to self-management or self-control. So first, problem with accountants is, let's talk about finance professionals related to emotional intelligence. When we are trying to become finance professionals or qualified accountant, for 4 or 5 years, we go through a training where we are trained to think in tangible terms only, tangibility, materiality. We are trained to ignore intangibles. We are trained to only look for the hard facts. We are trained to ignore emotions, evidence, verification. That is how we are trained, early part of our life. No wonder when we are matured, we are behaving in certain fashion. That's why, generally speaking, whether you like it or not, accountants are considered weak in emotional intelligence. And you may differ with it. My personal observation also that we are weak in emotional intelligence, generally speaking, because of the same reason. There are other disciplines, marketers, as I mentioned, are smart to understand the emotions of the people. They have to make money out of it. They have to create businesses out of it. And they're pretty smart understanding the emotional intelligence. How does it work? How do we behave emotionally? And that is why their level of emotional intelligence is a little higher. So the problem is, and I think some other speaker also mentioned, when we are dealing with other functions especially, so this session or my topic was supposed to be finance business partnering, which is a very important area. Probably I'll do my thought sharing some other time. When you go to non-finance business partners and talk to them, what is your attitude? Usually what I have seen, I am myself including a victim of that, is to teach them. Tell them what is wrong with their business. Your margins are very low. Your prices are low. You should make more money. It's not helping the business, right? That is how we deal with the non-finance business partners. And guess what? What is the reaction? Many times they consider us bean counters because do we really understand the business? How many of us are trained in strategy? It's easier and cheap to talk about business strategy, but how many of us are really trained into it? Because we don't think that we really need to be trained. We are naturally trained. I naturally understand the strategy part. And the emotional intelligence tells us that if we go to non-finance business partner with a learning attitude, you go to marketing manager or director and ask them that I want to learn how these products work, probably we are able to deliver a better value for the business rather than when we try to teach the lessons to them. So relationship is the key. We all understand in today's world, relationship is very critical. When I went to Harvard, one of my mentors, Dr. Robert Kaplan, said, I don't know who the original quote from is, but he said, you don't sell product and services to your customers. You sell relationship. That is the power of relationship. Relationship is the vehicle on which you ride your journey. So, but it's not easy. You cannot jump start with the relationship. It start with the self-awareness, self-management, and the social awareness. And then we started to understand the relationship part in our business and life. This, what you see on the screen now, is a very powerful learning framework. I'm sure some of you might have seen that. 4 levels of awareness or 4 levels of consciousness. And there are 2 dimensions. One is the consciousness or unconsciousness, and competency or incompetency. So if you look at the box 1, is unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And normally, naturally, the babies are there. When babies are born, they are there. You don't know anything. Sometimes you also see some matured adult, really, unconscious incompetency. They don't know what they don't know. Pretty good place for them. But as you move upward in your life, then you started to move from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. Now you know something which you don't know. You know a skill, but you have to learn that. That's the conscious incompetence. And then you go to box 3, where you are consciously learning something. Think of driving, very common skill. At some point of time, you even don't know what was driving was, very young childhood. And then you knew that you could learn driving. You have to wait until 17, 18 years when you turned up. And then you started, so you are in box 2. And then you started learning. Quickly you learned it, but you were holding the steering wheel with 2 hands. That was box 3, conscious competence. But soon you reach to a point of level, unconscious competence, where you were driving, but you were talking, you were listening, you were even texting. That's the level of mastery for any skill. So whether it's driving or playing a musical instrument or learning swimming or cycling, the cycle is the same from box 1 to box 3, box 3, box 4. Also think of the leadership skills and the business skills. We go through the same cycle. At some point of time, we don't know what we don't know. And some unconscious people remain there for the rest of their life, unconscious incompetence. But most of us, we move to box 2 and box 3, and then we stay in box 2 and box 3. Well, our target really should be box 4, mastery level, which is not easy to achieve. So think of the real, genuine leaders in your life you have seen in work or personal life, and see how they behave and how comfortable they are. They're even not making any efforts because it's all natural. When you are in box 4, you are operating from your subconscious. That's very important. In Olympics, when Olympians go there, it's not a matter of learning skills because they're already mastery level. They want to train themselves psychologically to play from their subconscious, which gives you the best performance. Similarly, the great leaders, great business leaders operate from their subconscious mind. So we need to do a skill so repetitively that we reach to the box 4. An expert says to reach to the mastery level for skills, you need 8 to 10,000 hours training. So think how much work hard we have to do to become a strategist or a business leader. Another very important part of the emotional intelligence is the ego part, and we are familiar. And what we are not familiar, that we are not our ego. Ego resides in us, but it's a separate being. If you understand that, it would solve many, many problems. And the advice from expert is that we need to distinguish between ego and dignity. If you take care of your dignity, your ego would take care of itself. So leave the ego at the door, easier to say, but if you keep your dignity, that's easy. If you have dignity, it's easier to ask for forgiveness. If you have dignity, it's easier to accept failure and learn more. If you have dignity, it's easier to maintain your relationship in any position. So dignity, you cannot get rid of ego, but you can replace ego with dignity, and that would solve one question. Whenever I deal with these situations in Middle East, one question come across, or one objection come across whenever we are talking about the great leadership philosophies or the best practices, that look, this is Middle East, this is different, the culture is different, so it cannot be done here. And I ask counter question that who are your competitors? And most of the time, competitors already include several companies from West. The most admired company, Fortune 500 company, who are very successfully operating in this region. So why this culture is working for them, and when we talk about adopting those practices here, then it becomes difficult that it's a different culture. Now, can culture be changed? Yes, it can be in the long term, Short term, it may be difficult, but these companies, the big companies, understand very well. And when they deal with these employees from this region, of course, culture is different. But they say, look, you have now joined General Electric. And here is our GE culture. And you become part of it. Here is the code of ethics and code of conduct. And employee very happily accept and adopt. Yes, I'm a GE employee. I'm going to behave like a GE employee. That is how they solve the situation. So the best way to change the culture in the long term is to change the behavior. If you focus on the behavior, it will take time. But it's all about emotional intelligence, understanding the emotions of other people and your own, and influencing them with the behavior change. If you have not come across with emotional intelligence topic, my sincere advice, read this book on the left side from Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman is a living legend on emotional intelligence, and he has several books. But this is an easy read, very practical book with very many practical case studies, especially for the working professional like us. If you could afford, please buy that book and go through it. It will tremendously help you. And if you are more interested in the ego stuff, to really transform your ego into your dignity, then try this Eckhart Tolle, New Earth Awakening Your Life. It's a little bit spiritual, but very strong motivator. These two books together could change your life. That's my little message on the emotional intelligence. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I could answer.
We have time for a couple of questions, please, not more than.
Sir, if you know you are in box 2, then how to manage the challenges to move to box 3? And like, for example, in my case, I'm a mid-career professional. Managing your professional life, managing your personal life, and then addressing to like your weaknesses.
Absolutely.
How to manage it?
Absolutely. Good question. And so what happens that, as I said, that if you are in box 1, you would remain in box 1 all of your life if you don't make any effort. So make some conscious effort, at least get into box 2. When you get into box 2, your consciousness aroused. And that is where you need to make a decision to take charge of your life. If you are, from professional life point of view, if you are waiting, even if you're employed and you're waiting for your employer to come someday and offer you a promotion, it's probably not going to happen. So you need to become proactive and take charge and create conditions which would speed up and accelerate that process. That's what I'm preaching in my coaching program, that times have changed. All jobs are temporary. So don't wait for that unfortunate situation where you don't have a job. You have to really proactively manage yourself. Learn new skills. The world is changing faster than we can imagine. Learn new things. Develop networks. So good news is you are sitting here, right? So already you have the opportunity to network with more powerful people, more senior people than you. Now, why it's important? It goes back to the relationship I mentioned. It goes back to the emotional side, that if you have a relationship with someone, there are high chances that you would get their help. If you don't know them or they don't know, yeah, you could get some help, but the chances, probability is very low. So let's try to take advantage of the networking and the relationship to leverage situations in our favor in our professional life. That's the very purpose of Meca I mentioned in the morning, if you heard me. Networking for the sake of leadership and professional development, and leadership development for the sake of career growth.